we have a device, and that device supports different orientations, such as portrait and landscape. Inside this device is a camera sensor that also supports different orientations, portrait and landscape. But the orientations inside the sensor might not always match the orientations in the device. Also inside that sensor we have a number of preview resolutions, and they tend to be set up in landscape mode. But what happens if you want to have your camera preview in portrait mode? And if this is not enough to put off anyone from watching a video, I don't know what is. Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. Okay, this intro was probably a bit convoluted, but what I was trying to convey here is that when we're running our preview in portrait mode, we are going to have to swap our height and width around to match the resolutions in the preview table, just so we can select a preview for our texture view as such. Anyway, we'll make a start on that, and hopefully the coding and everything like that, and maybe following tutorials will help simplify or elaborate on this. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just to create a new member here, just to sort of, it will translate the device's orientation numbers into real world degrees, 90, 180, 270, etc. Okay, so let's create a member. I might just create the member down here. This is actually, member's going to be an array. And it's going to be a SparseIntArray, and I'll call it orientations. Now we can initialize our array with a static block. We'll call orientations and append, and the name for this we're going to use is going to be given to us from the surface. Rotation 0, and it's going to support 0, and we'll do the same again for 90, 270 and 180. I think I'll have that out. So I'm just going to get these to support those values. I'll start with 90 first. And we'll go down to 270. 180. Why do I keep saying 270? And once more, and now we'll do 270. Again, this orientation list is just there to convert the display orientations, that happen to be a number, into a real world orientation percentage. Now we need to create a method. We'll call it sensor to device rotation. Okay, it's going to take a number of arguments here. First one will be the camera characteristics. And the second one will be an int representing the device orientation. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just to create a member to support the sensor orientation. We'll call it sensor orientation. We can get that from the camera characteristics. And there we have their sensor orientation. Now we need to convert the device orientation into a real world percentage such as 90, 180. So we can call device orientation, and this is where we call our orientations list. We could call get, and we're passing the device orientation member there. Okay, now we've got these two values. We basically add them together and then ensure that they reside in the 360-degree space. So we can return from here. So we'll add these two together. We'll add the sensor orientation plus device orientation. Then add 360. And on the end there, put a modulus of 360 just to keep it inside the 360 region. And that's it for the sensor to device orientation. Now we need to go into our setup method. Setup camera method here. Now we're just going to add some code in this position here. And so basically we've got all the code in place now to call our method and then work out whether or not we're in portrait mode or not. If we're in portrait mode, we just need to swap our width and height up here around. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is to get the device orientation. So I'll create a member called device orientation. And we can get that from the window manager. Get default display settings and get rotation. So we've got that value now. Now we're going to create another member just to get the final total rotation result. So I'll call it total rotation. Now we'll call our sensor to device rotation method. Now remember in here we've already created our CameraCharacteristics object, so we can call that. And with the device orientation from the line above. Okay, now let's create a Boolean to do the check whether or not we're in portrait mode. And we'll call it swap rotation. Telling us, do we need to swap rotation or not of our width and our height. Okay, so let's do a check on the total rotation. If total rotation equals 90, or if total rotation equals 270, we'll supply that to the swap rotation here. Okay, now let's create two integers to hold either the original width or the swapped height to the width variable. And I'll call these rotated width and rotated height. And we can assign the width from the setup camera argument. And we'll do the same for create a member for the height as well. Okay, now we'll do a check on our Boolean swap rotation. So that's true. In other words, if our device is in a portrait mode here, we need to swap our width and the height. So we'll call rotated width. We'll assign the height to it instead. And do the same for the height. Assign the width to that. You remove this breakpoint, not too sure why it was there. Okay, and I'm going to stop here. That's as far as I want to go in this tutorial. So basically, we're forcing whether or not the device is in landscape or portrait mode, we're forcing the values to go into our landscape size, because all our preview resolutions on the sensor are in landscape method. So when we're matching the sensor preview dimensions or resolutions to our texture view, we'll be doing it all from landscape mode as such, and that will become more evident in the following tutorial to this, where we actually do that. We create our preview size for that. Anyway, before I close this tutorial, let me put a breakpoint in here and just see the values that we're getting here. I'm just going to put a single breakpoint just in here and observe the values we're getting, and I'm going to sort of hold this in a sort of portrait mode as well, so we can see what happens. I should just big thick monster cable for my phone. Anyway, see if that goes in portrait mode, and so we'll try running this. Actually, so I'm going to run this in debug. Just scroll up here. We've hit the breakpoint here. Let's go down. So let's look at the device orientation. It's just a number 0. So let's go to swap rotation. Let's see what we get for swap rotation. Is it true? It's true. Okay, so we're probably in the 90 position here. Let's carry on down. And as you can see in here, we are now setting the total width, the rotated width and the rotated height. We're setting them, we're sort of reversing the values for those, so they can be then used for finding our preview resolution from the sensor. Okay, I'll just continue with that. Okay, that's it to this particular tutorial. We are now starting to learn within the camera APIs that we've got like two sensors to be aware of, the device sensor and the camera sensor. And we're also starting to look into the resolutions just from the preview to show up, which is going to be showing up on our texture view on our display of our application. So there's a number of things just to be aware of, and we'll go in deeper in the following tutorials to this. Anyway, that's it for this one. If you want to get notified of the following tutorial or my other tutorials I'm working on, click on the subscribe button down below. And now surrounding me, you can see my social media accounts, and I always keep the update status of where I am with mobile application tutorials. So if you are fans of any of these social media accounts and you're using a PC, you can click on any of those icons right now. And don't forget my website at the top. Not only do you have the video, you also have the details of the code I push up to GitHub, as well as explanations, brief explanations of all the code changes I make on each tutorial. That's all for this one. Bye for now.